right, so as Sarah mentioned, today we're going to cover the reposition function within SigmaNEST. For machines with clamps, like the one for this task on the screen, or with cutting areas smaller than the sheet, reposition allows you the hold down and the clamps to be moved in order to cut parts nested under the clamps or to cut parts that are currently outside the cutting zone. In this webinar, I'm going to cover how to set up and apply repositioning. As we go through this, keep in mind the reposition settings that you have available to you will vary based on your machine and the options enabled in your post file. The example task I have set up here uses a 120 by 60-inch sheet. The machine I have is a combination laser punch. The laser cutting zone covers the entire sheet, but the punch zone is only 100 inches long. You can see that I've nested parts and applied NC with a mixture of punch and laser processes. Since the machine punch zone doesn't cover the entire sheet, I know I'll need to reposition in my program. So let's go through each of the settings available to us relating to reposition. I'll start by opening up SigmaNEST here, and I'm going to go ahead and click on the reposition button up in the top of the screen here on the nesting NC tab. Now, within the dialog box here, we can see that there are two existing positions, position 1 and position 2. If I click on each of these positions, you'll see that the colors of the parts on the nest reflect the position in which they're going to be processed. The parts that will be processed in position 1 show red, and the parts that are processed in position 2 show green. Across the top of this window, there are a number of tabs. We'll start by covering the options within the general tab. Reposition offset is how far the position is from the edge of the sheet. The value for position 1, that's currently grayed out because it's by default at the edge of the sheet. Clicking on position 2, we can see that that is set at 19.2126 inches from the left of the sheet. We can have some control over what processes can occur in each position, and that's done via the reposition type. The settings here are empty, all, normal punch only, punch tabs only, profile only, shear only, and crop only. Empty positions the sheet but doesn't apply any processes. All will allow any process to be applied. Normal punch only will only allow punching to occur. So if we had a combination of punch and lasers processes, like in this case, only the punch processes would be applied. Punch tabs only does tabs only. Profile only is the opposite of normal punch only and applies cutting and not punching in this case. Shear only allows only rectangular shear cutting. And finally, crop only allows crop cutting. For my example, I want to punch the right side of the sheet, then punch the left side of the sheet, and then apply a laser to cut anywhere on the sheet. So to do this, I'm going to change the reposition or the position 1 type to empty. Then I'll set my position 2, reposition type to punch only or normal punch only. Next, I'll insert a new position by clicking the insert button here. So we get position 3. I'm going to set the offset to 0 so that it goes back to the left side of the sheet. And then I'm going to set that reposition type to all. All would work in this case. If I only wanted to have laser applied in this position, I could also use the profile only to do that. The other options we have on this tab here are delete, so that we could be used to remove a position, add rotated, which can be used to add a position that is rotated 180 degrees, and equally spaced. And equally spaces the clamps out evenly based on the last clamp position. The next tab we'll take a look at is the clamps tab. These settings will let us adjust the location of the clamps. The clamps can be set independently for each position or once for all positions. With all positions unchecked, if I select a position from the left, I can then choose which clamp I want to adjust and set the distance from the edge of the sheet using the clamp distance here. With all positions checked, the selected clamp will be moved for every position. The Update Workspace button will refresh the workspace and display any clamp changes. You could also use the Move button to adjust the clamp location on the workspace directly. if I select Move and then click on one of the clamps, I can drag it side to side to adjust its location. Clicking Save to PST will save these settings to the post file. If you want to adjust the settings for the current session only, you can click on Set Session, and that will do that without overwriting the post file. If you want to make sure that no clamps will move off the edge of the sheet, go ahead and select the Keep Clamps on Sheet option. The next tab is the Options tab, and this is used to control cropping and breaking around clamps. The first setting here is Add Crop Line, and applying this will cut off unused material after each reposition. Using Reverse Split NC Direction, the NC direction is split and reversed instead of going in a single clockwise or counterclockwise direction. And I'll pull up an example of that on my screen here. So you can see on the left, the NC is applied in a counterclockwise direction for both positions. On the right, the NC is split and reversed to circle around from top to center, or top center to bottom center on both both positions. If a large part is nested under a clamp and will still be under clamp after repositioning, break around clamps will cut the accessible contours, stop, reposition, and then finish the cut after the clamp has been moved. When utilizing break around clamp and crop line, the crop lead-ins and clamp lead-ins menus can be used to apply and set lead-ins and lead-outs for those cuts. Auto resolve on move automatically resolves issues when a part is moved. If you enable force break at percentage or force break at percent, it will consider the break percentage value when determining how far into an overlap a break occurs if a part spans repositioning zones. That is, if a part falls into two different zones or multiple zones. On the hold downs tab, which is the next tab over, we can set the X and Y coordinates of the machine's hold downs. You can select the position on the left of the window here, and then either input the X and Y locations for that hold down, or use the move button, like with the clamp, and click on the screen and move that hold down, which is indicated right now by those two red dots in the line connecting the two of them. Clicking the Move All to Current button will move the hold downs for all locations to match the position currently selected. So each position could have its own hold down position, or they could all match. Next tab over is the Display tab. And this tab can be used to configure the display of the workspace parts relative to the process positions. For example, you can adjust the line style, the fill type, and whether to highlight the overlaps in process zones. So if I were to click on that, you can see that that highlighted green there, that space is overlapped by both or by all my processes there. Next tab over is the Sequencing tab, and this defines the break and overlap rules, reposition direction, and tab tool sequence. The part reposition break rule determines how to handle parts that fall into multiple positions. For example, the parts on the far right of my workspace here currently fall into positions 2 and 3. So just that little bit of them are in both positions. Allow any reposition allows a part to be processed in different process positions. So I could have with allow any reposition, since I have two processes happening on those parts, punch and laser, it's allowing them to be processed in each of those zones separately. If I have a keep same repos if possible, that sets apart to have all processes applied in just one of the overlapping positions if possible. So it tries to process all of the part in one position. And force same repos forces all of the processes to be applied in the same position. For this to happen, the part must fall completely within one position. So if for our example, if I set this to force same reposition and click resolve, you'll see the parts on the right start blinking, letting us know something isn't set up correctly. I set my position so that the punching is happening in position 2, but the laser can't happen until position 3. So force same repos is trying to force both to happen within the same position, but it can't. If I set this back to allow any repositions or keep same repositions if possible and resolve again, now it goes back to being fine. The overlap rule, and this reposition direction, that's actually set within the post, so that's not something we can change right here. Overlap rule, this is used for parts that are nested within overlapping process zones and require processing before any repositioning takes place. So our options here, expedite processing allows parts to be processed in the first available position that overlaps all of the processes. Delay processing allows the part to be processed in the last process position that the part is nested in. Delay only forming delays the forming process to the last possible overlapped position. And finally, max delay allows parts to be processed in the last position that overlaps all of the process parts. So again, this is just talking about when you have multiple processes set up for a part and you have overlapping zones, how is that all handled? And then the tab tool sequence type, that's used to select how tabbing is applied. The tabbing can be applied as the processes occur or delayed until after the position processes to prevent tabs from separating during repositioning. This option must be enabled in the post file, otherwise it'll be unavailable, like in this case here. The options here would be 1, allow tabbing to occur within the reposition process with all the other tools. 2, apply tabs after the reposition process is completed, working from the last position back to the first position. Or 3, after processes are applied to all positions, the machine is positioned back to the first position and then tabbing is applied. The final tab here is the manual tab, and this allows us to place parts within overlapping positions into a selected position. And this will override any automatic positioning that was set. From the sheet selection section, you can choose the method for part selection. The options here are by part, by entity, by part process, or by entity process. By part process forces the selection of parts by the part process for the position. By entity process forces the selection of internal and external entities for the position. To select parts to reposition, just click the Select to Change button and then choose the parts from the layout. So as an example here, if I go back to my Sequence tab and change this to Force Same Repositions, and I get my error again, I can come back to the Manual tab and select Position 3, select the Change button, and then pick those parts that are giving an error. So I'm overriding that Force Same Repositions and moved those parts into position 3. Now what I'm going to do, because it's trying to position all of those parts in position 3, but the punch that's outside the punch zone, what I'll now do is go to By Entity, grab those punch contours there, and move those back to position 2. So what I did here was I tried to force same reposition. I couldn't position these all within the same position. So then I manually added the parts to position 3 and then went back by entity and just did those punch contours and put them back into position 2. If you need to reset the repositioning back to the original, you can just click the Reset All Repositions button there. Finally, we have the Resolve and Auto Resolve buttons. If you've added any manual repositions, Resolve will apply the processes and settings within that position. Auto Resolve will automatically set up all of the repositioning. And that takes us all the way through all the settings for reposition. So at this point, if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask those in the chat. Also, feel free to visit the Connect site, so connect.sigmanest.com, to check out any articles, any of our other webinars, the knowledge base there. If you have any questions for us that maybe aren't related to this topic, feel free to reach out to us on the helpline, 513-595-2002. And if you want any formal training or have specific things you'd like to see covered in training, reach out to your sales rep and they can work on getting that set up for you.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and wait for people to ask any more questions that they would like to answer or have answered. But while we do that, I'd like to go over the future webinars that we have set up for you. So on 12/2, which is a Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we'll be doing a DSTV import and export features webinar. And then we will also be doing a part tracking and revision control webinar on 12/16. That's again a Wednesday at 1 p.m. We'd be happy to have you all there. They're up for registration now, so if you'd like to register for those webinars, you can feel free to do so. And also all of our past webinars, if you've missed any webinars or weren't able to attend a webinar that you would have liked to, are posted up on the Knowledge Base website. So if you would like to watch any of our previous webinars, you can find those there. This webinar will also be posted. There's articles in regards to all of the webinars as well that go over some of the details spoken about in the webinar to give you kind of a written document if that is more your speed or some more what you would like to share with any colleagues or anything like that. But right now it looks like we have one question left. And then I'm going to go ahead after that is answered and close out the webinar. So if you have any more questions, please, if you could get those in quickly, that would be good. Otherwise, we hope you have a lovely Thanksgiving if you're in the United States, and otherwise we'll see you back hopefully on 12/2 for the DSTV import and export features webinar. We'll also be posting the January webinars and February webinars here in the next couple of weeks. So I don't have any topics for those at this point though, but feel free to check back in or set reminders for webinars that are uploaded on our website. You can do that where you register for the webinars as well to be let know when any of the webinars are posted. So it looks like we have answered all the questions. I want to thank you all for coming out. Have a lovely weekend. Have a lovely Thanksgiving if that's applicable to you. And we will see you next time.